Some of the best comics have come from our side of the pond. Welcome to WatchMojoUK, and today we're counting down our picks for the top 10 British comic books.
Excellent. If you're not confused, you're not paying attention. Now, time for your famous rack of lamb. One should never battle demons on an empty stomach.
Before we begin, we publish new videos every day, so be sure to subscribe for more great content. For this list, we'll be focusing on comic books created by British writers and/or artists. We won't be focusing on British writers' runs on popular American titles, so don't expect to see Alan Moore's Batman: The Killing Joke on this list. To be eligible for this list, the comics must be synonymous with the British creators who made it a success.
If you'd cared from the start, none of this would have happened.
Number 10, Hellblazer.
A demon just attacked me right out in the open on Figueroa.
They don't like you, John.
Alan Moore and Stephen R. Bizet introduced British occultist John Constantine during their run on Swamp Thing in 1985. The smart, snarky, sarcastic, magic-using conman was a hit with readers and received his own title, Hellblazer, in 1988 under the creative direction of British writer Jamie Delano. There have been a number of adaptations of the character, including the 2005 film starring Keanu Reeves and the short-lived television series starring Matt Ryan. Some of the best UK talent have had a crack at working on Hellblazer, including Neil Gaiman, Grant Morrison and Garth Ennis, just to name a few.
Brilliant.
Number 9, Sláine. Sláine debuted in the pages of 2000 AD number 330, created by Pat Mills, the man responsible for bringing the massively influential British comic anthology into the world in the first place. Originally illustrated by Mills' wife and collaborator Angela Kincaid, Sláine brings Celtic myths to life on the page with brilliant storytelling and unforgettable images. Sláine is a wandering barbarian warrior wielding a giant axe known as Brainbiter. Sound like Conan? Perhaps, but Slaine's over-the-top qualities and underlying sense of mysticism make it stand out. Plus, there's nothing like Celtic mythology to give heft and black humour to a character. Number 8, The Invisibles. Scottish comic book writer Grant Morrison's brainchild, The Invisibles is almost as strange, idiosyncratic and psychedelic as the man himself. According to Morrison, the true credit for the story and characters belongs to aliens who he communicated with during a strange spiritual experience he had while visiting Kathmandu. Kind of like a twisted reimagining of the X-Men, the series follows a group of enhanced time-traveling freedom-fighting outcasts from Invisible College who fight against tyranny and oppression by any means necessary. The group is led by the charismatic King Mob, an assassin who bears an undeniable and uncanny resemblance to Morrison. Number 7, Swamp Thing. Alan Moore loves putting a new spin on old characters. Swamp Thing was created by writer Len Wein and artist Bernie Wrightson in 1971 as a man-turned-monster who was hell-bent on regaining his humanity and avenging the death of his wife. But it was Alan Moore's run on the book from 1984 to 1987 that completely revitalized the character and saved the series from cancellation. Moore first took the character back to his roots and then elevated him to a godlike figure. As a so-called plant elemental, he became the embodiment of nature and protector of the green. It's all a bit heady, but it makes for some of the most interesting writing in comics. Number 6, Preacher.
What you did was wrong. Are you sorry about it?
English artist Steve Dillon and Northern Irish writer Garth Ennis were labelled by some as blasphemous heretics for this comic. Fans, though, saw this unconventional supernatural satire as a brilliant piece of comics writing from the get-go. Jesse Custer is a small-town preacher in Texas who gets possessed by a half-angelic, half-demonic supernatural entity known as Genesis. Now possessed, he is able to control and influence people using the word of God, if not always for godlike purposes. A helpful vampire, some vengeful and worried angels, and a family filled with abusive religious fanatics also figure prominently. It all makes Preacher unlike anything that's come before it in comics, or anything that's come after for that matter.
Guys, I've seen a lot of weird stuff in my life, more than my fair share, but I've never, not one time, heard of God fitting himself into a can of old-timer.
Number 5, V for Vendetta.
Remember the 5th of November.
Originally published in the anthology series Warrior before it was cancelled in 1985, the story was picked up and then continued a few years later and published by Vertigo. Alan Moore and David Lloyd created a classic dystopian tale of anarchism versus totalitarianism in a pessimistic future vision of England. It has been hailed for its unique style and groundbreaking storytelling, and criticised for the extreme methods used by its protagonist. Few comics and characters have captured the imagination of young, rebellious types quite like the titular character V. His crusade against the tyranny of the New World Order and the fascist regime at the center of it all strikes a strong chord.
Wait! Here comes the crescendo! How beautiful is it not?
Number 4, Tank Girl.
Elvis, come out and play. Hey, baby, what do you say? Me and you, Vegas.
Wouldn't it be cool to live in a tank? It seems to be working out for Rebecca Buck, aka Tank Girl. The spunky punk-inspired anti-hero became something of an icon for anti-establishment British youths, particularly women, in the late 80s during the Margaret Thatcher years. Tank Girl was a darkly humorous satire that was purposefully chaotic and absurdist.
Feeling a little inadequate?
Figuring out what was going on was half the fun, and ignoring it was the other half. Tank Girl debuted in the pages of Deadline, a British comics magazine and anthology dedicated to promoting up-and-coming talent. Considering creators Jamie Hewlett and Alan Martin went on to have illustrious careers in the alt comics scene, it's fair to say Deadline did its job.
What do you say we blow this joint?
Number 3, Judge Dredd.
Release the hostage, unharmed, and I guarantee you a sentence of life in an ISO cube without parole.
Like so many classic British comics and characters, Judge Dredd was conceived in the pages of 2000 AD. After a sudden surge of popularity, the character received his own book, video games, and even a couple of movies. Created by John Wagner, Carlos Ezquerra, and Pat Mills, Dredd is a street judge operating in Megacity 1, a dystopia where law enforcement officers act as judge, jury, and executioner.
What are you waiting for, rookie? His crime is attempted murder of a judge. The sentence is death.
He's an incredibly violent and visceral character, and the series appeals to fans of unconventional artwork and stories not often found in the pages of comics. There's really nothing else out there quite like Judge Dredd. Number 2, Watchmen.
What happened to the American dream? What happened to the American dream? It came true. You're looking at it.
Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' seminal masterpiece helped bring about a seismic shift in attitudes towards superhero comics. Watchmen stands as a tentpole in the history of comics, a paradigm shift that most would argue changed the comics for the better by embracing adult themes and looking at the superhero genre with a critical eye.
Get that mask off! My face!
Alan Moore asked not for the first time what would really happen if the world had costume heroes, and the answer was both disturbing and thrilling. Despite its setting and the thematic significance of American culture that runs through each book, Watchmen was crafted by 2 British creators who have continued to push the boundaries of the medium.
Pretty soon, papers get wind of it, they ran with it, and oh boy, we're a national pastime.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few honourable mentions. Number 1, The Sandman. Neil Gaiman's meticulously crafted fantasy is a deep dive into the world of the metaphysical and the mythological. The series follows Dream, otherwise known as Morpheus, who is part of a group known as the Endless. These strange beings are embodiments of forces which control our reality, yet their reality is inextricably linked to our own. Sandman is first and foremost a deconstruction and examination of stories and dreams. Why they matter so much to us, why they've remained at the centre of human experience throughout our history, and how they connect us all. Gaiman has been hailed as one of the greatest writers of his generation, and Sandman is his masterpiece. Do you agree with our picks? Check out these other great clips from WatchMojoUK and subscribe for new videos every day.